Hi folks, and welcome to the very first Global Acts of Unity, the Q&A sessions, hosted on our YouTube channel. In this series we will explore the questions that I get asked in presentations and emails. If you wish, you can be part of this show by sending your question in to mike@globalactsofunity.com, and then I will attempt to answer your questions. What were my last words to my brother? Oh, my last face-to-face words with my brother were when we met in Perth in our usual pub for a pint, as was our wont. David told me that he was going to Syria on his next humanitarian mission. He was going with an agency called ACTED, a very well-known and respected NGO. Well, the evening finished and we were about to part ways, and I gave him a hug and told him to watch his back out there. Come back home safe. What has been the most personal significant achievement of the campaign? Well, it has to be the award of the Order of the British Empire. In 2018 I received a letter saying that my name had been put forward for consideration of the award of the OBE. You could have knocked me flat with a feather. In fact, I'm still waiting on a letter from Buckingham Palace saying, "Mike, Mr. Haines, I'm really sorry, we have made a mistake. Here's a Tesco's Well Done badge instead." Later on in 2018 in November, my godparents, my wife and I travelled to Buckingham Palace for presentation of the award by Prince William. It really was a magnificent occasion and we all loved it. Global Acts of Unity is not just one person. There are many people involved in Global Acts of Unity. From my family, my wife, my two boys, from my godmother, my godfather sadly passed away, my parents have sadly passed away, but they were all and are all supporters of Global Acts of Unity. And then there are my friends who equally support the work of Global Acts of Unity. We have quite a wonderful team of supporters who do an amazing job behind the scenes. They are so important to GAU's work and continuability. But most of all, the people who should have got the medal are the students themselves. The students who have been to see my presentations, the students who have turned away from words of hate or acts of hate and done something positive. We know here at GAU that there have been many wonderful acts that come from these students, and they are the ones who truly deserve the award. Branny from Cardiff writes, "What is my opinion on humanitarian groups, and do I support the people who join them?" So first of all, I'd like to clarify what I mean by humanitarian groups, organisations.
They are there to bring help to people who cannot, for some reason, help themselves, whether it be natural disasters, whether it be conflict.
We are living in such a time of turmoil, strife, hunger and war. These conditions that so many of the world's population are living in are only going to get worse. And we have seen that in the recent news. It is so important that we as a society reach out to those who have no shelter, no food, no hope. We reach out and shine the light of humanity into these lives of despair and fear. Humanitarians, by their very nature, go to places to help their fellow man. They go with no regard for their safety. They only go to help those less fortunate than ourselves. They go with no regard for colour, culture, faith, politics. They only go to help those in need. If we cannot help our fellow man in their time of need, then we are lost. Humanitarians are our modern day heroes. So we as individuals, as communities, as society, as nations need to support them in the work that they do that we cannot. We need them to spread the light of hope and kindness all over the world. I am proud and honoured to be associated with the agency that my brother worked for when he went to Syria. ACTED are an amazing organisation who are in so many different countries around the world helping man at their time of need. On the 12th of March 2013, my brother David was on his way to a refugee camp with his colleague Federico. They were in Syria to help the refugees fleeing from the terror and war of ISIS. Their convoy was ambushed. David and Federico were dragged at gunpoint from their vehicle, beaten senseless, thrown into a van and driven off at high speed. For the next 18 months, my brother, along with Federico and other hostages, were held. They were brutalized, they were tortured, they were maltreated, they were fed rarely. And then on the 13th of September 2014, in a video that was broadcast around the world, my brother was murdered. My brother and ACTED were in Syria for the same reasons, to help the refugees, to help those people fleeing for their very lives. David was and is my hero. My hero because he made the world a better place by his actions. All the humanitarian organisations have a proper training scheme where you will learn and get experience in the humanitarian world. And then, when it is safe to do so, You will go out to a place, a country that needs help. If you do so, if you take that humanitarian path, you become a modern day hero. So look me up and I will shake your hand and call you friend. Were we able to recover my brother's body? Thank you, Sophia, for your question. The short answer to that is no. My brother's body lies somewhere in the Syrian desert, being scoured by the wind and the sand. You see, ISIS couldn't even do the decent thing and leave us his body. Whilst it's not important for me, it is important for other members of my family. Not long after my brother's murder, my mum passed away. She basically gave up on life and over a year or so slowly dwindled away until there was nothing else. It wasn't so long back that I lost my father as well. I also lost my godfather and uncle not long back either. There's just myself, my wife, my two boys and my godmum, who is a great help and support to me. When I'm doing a presentation, I have a little ritual that I go through before and after the presentation. The first thing I do is I bow my head and I pray to God to help give me strength to get through the presentation. Because I'll let you into a secret. You lot scare the bejesus out of me. The nerves that I feel before a presentation are out of this world. The second thing I do is go, hey, Mum, Dad, bruv, because it was never Dave or Mike, it was bruv. Bruv, good Dad. I love you, I miss you. Lend me a hand here. And at the end of the presentation I sit down, I bow my head and I say thank you to God. And I can feel my brother pat me on the back and go, nice one. Now get the beers in. Because that was his answer to everything. Get the beers in. So typically, David, there is a saying here in Scotland that you never truly die until your footsteps fade away. Mum, Dad, David's and my goddad's footsteps are with me still. They walk with me each and every day. From Jamie in Liverpool. What was my childhood like and where was I brought up? My mum was in the Royal Navy and my dad was in the Royal Air Force. To the age of 13, I never lived in a country for much longer than a year. We lived in all sorts of different places all over the world, including Malaysia and Germany, for instance. David and I's childhood was so wonderful. We were so lucky in so many different ways. Mum and Dad cared for us, loved us, and did everything they could for us. One of the great things about David's and I's childhood was the fact that we experienced so many different cultures and faiths. And Mum and Dad always encouraged David and myself to learn from those cultures and faiths and to experience them as much as possible. One of the downsides to this life of travelling was the fact that we had no roots, we had no hometown. Yes, it was exciting travelling all around the world and seeing so many different things, but it would have been nice to have a home as well. My wife comes from Fraserburgh, up on the northeast coast of Scotland. Her family have been in that area for generations, and that solidity, those foundations mean a great deal, and it's something that I have a touch of envy for. When we were kids, we never knew where or when Dad was going to get posted, and that was exciting but also distressing as well. Like every other forces child, when we moved we had to leave our friends behind, and then wherever we moved we had to make new ones, and this was the forces life. Mum and Dad were very keen for David and I to learn about the countries that we were living in. So we often had day trips away and camping trips with our tent to explore and learn about the cultures, customs and faiths of the countries we were living in. This was to lead to some great advantages for David and I as we grew into later years. I can remember the first time that my brother, who was about 3-4 years old at the time, had seen a lady in a niqab, that's the full Islamic veil. And my brother toddled up to my mum and went, Mum, why is she dressed like that? And my mum went, don't ask me, go ask her. And it wasn't ignorance or laziness on my mum's part. It was trying to get us to ask questions. That's one of the things that Mum and Dad drilled into us, and it certainly paid me in good stead later on in life. So David toddled up to the lady and spoke to her, and she knelt down, spoke to him, and he came back quite happy. That typified my mum and dad's actions. Right at the start, mum and dad never had much money, and money was always tight. So when it came to Christmases and birthdays, there wasn't lots of presents. There was 1 or 2 presents, and that was about it. Some of those presents were hand-built. I can fondly remember a garage that my dad made himself for me, and I loved it. It was that well built, it could have stood a bomb blast, but to me it was wonderful, and the fact my dad had made it, even better. David and I were incredibly lucky. We had the most amazing childhood, and we were incredibly lucky getting to travel around with my parents and see all that we saw was wonderful. I will forever be in my parents' debt for the foundations that they gave David and I, that took him to humanitarian work and took me to Global Acts of Unity. So folks, that's the end of the very first Global Acts of Unity Q&A sessions. I hope you enjoyed, and if you did, please leave a comment below and hit the subscribe and like buttons. That's always appreciated. So until next time, take care. A lot of the work that Global Acts of Unity does is unfunded. If you would like to help us continue our work, we have a GoFundMe page where you can make a donation. Those donations would be gratefully received and will continue our work.